My name is Ezekiel Jimi Solagbade. I was born in 1934. My father's name is Adetokunbo Solagbade of blessed memory. My mother was Madam Ekundayo Solagbade. I grew up in Abeokuta, in the Ikereku area of the city. I grew up with my grandmother because my father was a civil servant and federal civil servant, and then was based in Kaduna. So my grandmother was a trader, was a big merchant, selling agricultural products from Oyo North. That is, Iseyin, Shaki, upwards. So the products were mainly egusi, atanla, iyere for making iru, and other products that were prevalent, were available up there and not down south. Now, my house is very near Iberekodo Market. In fact, it's in the center of Iberekodo Market in Abeokuta. Iberekodo Market is a distribution point for these products coming from the north part of Oyo to places like Badagry, Lagos, and the environment. So on a market day, people from these other cities, they come there to buy these products that were brought down from Iseyin and Shaki and so the market days are 5 days, every 5 days. On the 4th day, all the traders from the north, from Shaki and Iseyin, they are already in Abeokuta. And our house is one of the guest houses where merchants stay over the weekend when they come from a distant place. They stay there, they sleep there for 1 or 2 nights before they go back. So my grandmother was called Iyaero. Iyaero, that means she's always giving the service to travelers. Iyaero. So they brought their products. My grandmothers and traders like them around, they come in, they buy their products, and they take it to the market the following day. Then people from the city, from Abeokuta, from Ilaro, from Badagry, from distant places like Lagos, they come there to buy and take away. So on a market day, the place is very busy. Because that was the trade of my grandmother. That was what my mother was engaged into. And that is the environment in which I grew up. At about the age of 3 or 4, I think 4, I started a nursery school. A nursery school in the mission compound, just across my road. It was owned by the Meadows. The Meadows are descendants of the original missionaries, and their environment has all that environment show and picture and environment. So they organize infant classes for little children who could not start the normal primary school, because the normal primary school starts at 7. So around 4 or so, we begin this class, and they begin to teach us alphabets and Bible and memory verses, and we used to play. That's how we started. But I didn't stay too long there due to some family circumstances. My mother brought me to Lagos when I was around 5 or 6. So in Lagos, because of the environment again, is very crowded. The open air and environment that we enjoy in Abeokuta is not there. In Abeokuta, for instance, the house is very open and large. In Lagos, we have to restrain ourselves to our bedrooms, and very, very, very narrow compound. But that's where I grew up. I started school again when I was 7 years old. And I started at Lagos Government School, Ilubini in Lagos. In infant class 1. In those days, the school is divided into infant classes and elementary classes. You spend 2 years in the infant classes, that's infant 1 and infant 2. When you are promoted, you go to elementary, that is standard 1. And you spend 6 years there, that is elementary 1 to 6. That was the end of elementary education in those days. When you complete that, you sit for government certificate, standard 6 certificate, which in those days enabled children to go and work anywhere, in the civil service, in the local government, and as teachers. Oh, also in the companies, UAC, because our UAC, UTC, all those companies were there. That was the primary first school certificate that you can use to be a clerical officer, to undergo any training that needs basic education. Standard 6. I rose from infant 1 to standard 6 from 1941, completed in 1948. At the age of 40, I was at the age of 14 when I was in 1948 when I sat my Standard 6 School Leaving Certificate. My mother took me to Lagos in 1939, around 1939. And I started school in 1941 in Lagos. And I was with my mother. But my mother took ill in 1945-46, and she eventually died in 1947. So when my mother died, before she died, and when she was very sick, she had to go to Elisha because the parents were Ijesha and they have all returned home in those days. So she had to go to Elisha. Before then, I was always going on holidays to Elisha. And it was my mother's plan that I would eventually go to Elisha Grammar School. But unfortunately, before I was ready for secondary school, she died. And she did one very beautiful thing. She saved in Barclays Bank a very big amount of money. Her thought then was, if she dies, I might have difficulty in education. Because at that time, she was the only one responsible for my education. Because they parted ways with my father. She parted ways with my father. And my father wanted me, but she would not let me go to my father. She would not leave me alone. So she undertook responsibility for my education. She thought that was only what I could miss by not going to my father. So when she died, I was therefore parentless. My mother had taken me away from my father, and now my mother had died. So I was living with my mother's cousins, who are my uncles. So, but I got in touch with my father, and my father used to send delegates to come and see me. Fortunately, she was transferred to Ibadan. And from Ibadan, somebody was going on leave. So she was on relief duty to Lagos. Just when he was on relief duty, that was about a year after my mother died, there was a strong pressure for me to return to my father's house. And I was glad to, because there's no place like home. You know, I was always dreaming of Abeokuta, even while I was not there. And people were always coming, telling us stories, how they are faring, and telling them how we are faring. So I was glad to go back, and it was beautiful. So I haven't gone back. My father said, no, you don't go to Elisha Grammar School. 2, you don't go to secondary school in Lagos. You must go to the school that I went to and which your brothers went to. I had 2 brothers in front of me. One was 10 years older. The next one was 5 years older. The 10 years older, I didn't meet him at school at all. He passed out long before I was ready for grammar school. But the 5 years older, when I was in class 2, he was in class 5. So when I was in class 3, he was in his last class. As things will happen, when he left school, which was 1951, at the end of 1951, I had also to transfer to Lagos. I changed school and passed out in 1953. When I passed out in 1953, I joined the Ministry of Communication, P&T, Post and Telegraphs. I was sent to Oshodi School, training school in Oshodi, this present Oshodi. And I was training as a wireless operator. A wireless operator are the ones who receive radio messages about flights in the airports. And it covers not only Nigeria, but every part of the world. So we communicate with London, and of course, if you have messages for others, we transmit our message through London. So our neighbors, Niamey, Accra, Ghana, we used to have Dakar or something. Anyhow, we had international connection over the radio. Now, the radio communication, which we call wireless communication, is based on Morse code. And we did that for about 9 months. At the end of 9 months, we took an exam and they transferred us to other stations. You either go to Ikeja or you go to Kano or you go to Enugu, any airport where there is operation. So I was transferred in 1954. I was transferred to Kano. And I lived in Kano, 1954, 1955. At the end of 1955, when I was to go on leave, I came back to Ibadan. I didn't like to go back to Kano again because I wanted to go to higher institution. I made an effort while I was in Kano to see if I could go into Zaria. I didn't make it. So, 1955, when I was in Ibadan, I put in again. While I put in again, this time I was successful. I was given an admission to do architecture. It was a 5-year course. We have to travel from our hometown. We are given warrant to travel on the railway from our hometown to Zaria. Because Zaria was on the railway and my hometown, Abeokuta, was on the railway. So I went home to Abeokuta. And from Abeokuta, I joined the train. We traveled safely to Ibadan. After Ibadan, the train had an accident at Lalukun. That was in 1957. The accident, many people died. We had a college coach, which was reserved for students going to Zaria College only. Nigerian college only. Now, even amongst us, we have so much casualties. Only half of us survived. Anyhow, the bad episode does not need much elaboration. We that were safe were admitted to teaching hospital in Ibadan. When we were discharged, we returned to Zaria and we started our course. It was beautiful. The campus was very beautiful. The life there was very simple and enjoyable as a young man. In 1957, I think I was about 23 years old. And I've worked for about 4 years. Well, I started work from about 1953. 53 years. I started working in 1953. By 57, I've worked for about 4 years. So I was a rich student because I was always having in mind that I was going to higher institution and I will need money. So I was always saving good part of my salary. And my father was still alive to pay my school fees. And my sister too. They all joined hands. So I had a very good time my first year. Second, I was promoted from year 1 to year 2. We were very scanty. We were only 10 in the class. And by the time we were promoted to year 2, we became only 6. So at the end of year 2, it was in colonial days. We believed there was colonial politics going on to limit us into professional courses. So at the end of the second year, however, I was not so lucky. He said my drafting, that is the drawing, needs a little bit of grade. Therefore, they advised me to go and have some practical experience outside. Follow me up. Okay, I can then come back to college. Anyhow, this disappointment did not go well down with me. So I started making arrangements to travel abroad. I traveled abroad in 1960. I was in Zaria 57 to 59. In 1960, September, I was in England. When I got to England, I entered school studying building technology. The second year in England, I got a scholarship. And I proceeded. My academics was very good. I was very happy. So after my OND in London, I got tired of London. I wanted to see more of England. So I made applications to different institutions outside London. They all gave me admission because my record from London was very good. The school in London I was going was one of the very popular schools. So they were all happy to receive me. But eventually, I went for an interview in Sheffield. And when I got into the bus, they started their Yorkshire language, which is very romantic. They call everybody love. Hello, love. Hello, black love. hello, sunshine, hello. I was so happy. It was much better than what it was in London. So I went for the interview. They gave me paper to go and look for accommodation. They were looking for accommodation for me. They don't do that in London. So the school was looking for accommodation for me. So to go to the landlady who was to accommodate me, it was beautiful reception. So at that time I made up my mind. Even if London is going to give me double allowance, I will still go to Sheffield. So anyhow, I decided to pack my load and I went to Sheffield. I spent 2 years to do my higher diploma, and it was easy for me to get a job after that. And started doing my professional exam. But because I was on scholarship, I've signed an agreement to come and serve Nigeria on completion of my course. And since my academic course was completed, I reported to them. So they made arrangement to bring me back to Nigeria after working for about a year in Sheffield. So when I got back to Lagos, I got employed in the Federal Ministry of Works. But I still had my professional exam to complete. So anyhow, I was engaged with that. And usually we spend about 2, 3, 4 years after graduating before you pass your professional exam. So, but thank God, after about 3 years, I passed my own. And since I passed my own, I was upgraded and I was happy. I was upgraded. My service was going on. So I've stayed in the Ministry of Works till around 1960. No, I went in 1960. I came back in 65. I went in 65. I think I came out about 1972 or so. 72 or so, 73. And when I came out, then we were independent. Nigeria was independent. There was a lot of opportunities for professional practice. The expatriate companies that are here, they were looking for people with professional qualification. I had it. So, and my friends were telling me that I was wasting time in the ministry because within a year or two, whatever is your salary you can make it easily in the private sector. So I decided to pull out. I went to work for a consultant. I worked for them for 2 years or 3 years. Then I decided to be on my own. And we thank God. It was all work, struggle, but with success. And I was happy. So I did that on my own, until I finally retired. I think I retired in 1990 or so, around 1990. But since I retired, there were odd jobs here and there doing, and I was still running around a bit. Eventually, 1998 or so, I moved around here. I was still running about, but not seriously practicing, but helping friends and neighbors, because they knew the job, they knew my profession, they knew the job I was doing, and everybody at that stage wanted to own a house. They want to build. They are building. They want professional exam. I mean, uh, professional advice. And I love helping friends. I was doing it here and there. I even did it in the church. I did it for everybody. Everybody. So during that period too, I built my house. I built the first one. I built the second one. When I eventually retired and moved down here, I sold the second one. While I was here, I sold the first one and bought this one. While I was still, I built a little one in Abeokuta. So, but was not much use. So I thank God. In the last 3 years, I'm so strong. I can run about again. I'm learning to take it easy. Because before then, everybody is telling me, you can't be that old. Are you 70? From the time I was 70, they say, how can you say you are 70? Then I came to 80. Now, with the grace of God, I'm looking forward to 90. Right from when I was in Zaria, I was socially active. In my second year in Zaria, I contested an election to be food minister, and I won. And I occupied that position for a year before I left. When I came to Ibadan to do my industrial attachment, I continued. I became in the lands department where I was. I was in the town planning section of the lands department. I became the secretary of the junior technical service or something in the ministry. And I was from there posted to Oyo School of Survey. And I was in School of Survey till I boarded plane to go to England. I remember life was exuberant. I was full of zeal and energy. I wanted to do everything. And thank God for many that I did, they were successful. Before I came back, when I finished my course there, I picked up my social life. When I finished course, I was an officer in the student union, the Sheffield branch, and we were really very busy. I was particularly busy because, you remember, my first year, I spent as a poor, struggling student. It was at the end of first year that I got a scholarship. And I know the difference between a struggling student, which many of us were in those days, and a scholarship student. So when I finished and I was an officer there, I can understand the problem of people who are in my position when I first came. So I just go out for them to see whatever personally or collectively we can do for them. And I'm very happy that it's very, very well rewarded. Well rewarded. Because they all turned out to do well and they all appreciated me even before I left England there. Before I departed Nigeria, I was a staunch member of CMS Church, where I was baptized, and which I affiliated and associated with it until I went to England. But when I got to England, especially when I got to Sheffield, I was lonesome. So I picked up a church very close to the house. It's called Catano Methodist Church, Sheffield. At the end of the service, I went there around autumn, and they always shut their door because it's cold. And so at the end of the service, the vicar will stay at the door. So as you come out, he will shake hands with you. And I was the only stranger. Not only that I was a stranger, I was only colored. So, see, I said, what are we doing here? See, I just got transferred to Sheffield. I am in the Sheffield College of Technology. So, do you have any family here? I said, no. So, I said, this is just stay here around here. So I stayed here. So at the end of the day, one elderly man came, Mr. Startup, and the wife. He said, I've got a son for you, Jimmy, and all that and all that. And I said, what are you doing this afternoon? Would you like to come to lunch with us? Just straight away. So they carried me to the house. Not too far. They are not too far away, just about 2 streets away. And while she was preparing it, the man was taking me around the house. He plays violin, and to make me feel so much at home, as if they have known me before. And he was saying that he has a feeling that my parents will be very, very lonely now that I'm so far away from them. They had that feeling when their son went for military attachment after the Second World War. See, after the Second World War, they send you go on attachment just as we go into the army. You spend some time. Said they felt it so much, and so that passion was there. It's always reminding me when John was in service. When John was in service, they had service for 1 or 2 years, and so that John, I'll show you the picture when we get to it. It's part of this, because we became so close friends. See, after some time, they left me and gave me over to John. And John was just married then, and a little baby. And so when I spent 2 Sundays with the father, I spent 1 Sunday with John and the wife. And so I became a Sheffield man. They take me to all the interesting places in their environment, because they grew up there. The parents grew up there, the children grow up there, so they know all the interesting sports there. So that they made me a shepherd. But at my church there I was made to be very active. Then I turned to be a Methodist. And when I came back, I left Anglican completely. I was fellowshipping with Methodists. And my first house was in Apapa, Jegunle. And there was just a mushroom Methodist church there. So I was one of those who helped to build it up. My experience in England gave me some social, organizational ability. I was happy to be with them. I think they were very happy also to be with me. We were just as good big family as I was in England when I came to Lagos. When I came to Lagos. And since then I've been Methodist. I was Methodist until we left Apapa and came to Bagada. Next house to me was an elderly man who is a deacon of the Baptist church. He was trying to set up a new church in Bagada along the express. So on Sunday, he would put microphone outside, inviting people to come for home service. Anyhow, eventually, I was drawn in. And because I'm always around building new church, that was another new church for me. And we were just like a big family. And I think we spent a long time, about 10 or 20 years there before the children went to Unilag. And we have to change over to Unilag. So it was that is my experience. Now, by the time I got to Unilag, I was already old. I was no longer active. And besides Unilag, because of the environment, they didn't lack services, any social services in any area. They probably even have more than enough. So I was not too, but then as a professional, I was engaged in the development of all their new properties. We have about 5 or 6-story building. We have a new church. We have all that. And in all that, I was involved. Praise the Lord. I'm also a member of the Men's Fellowship. Right now, I think I'm the oldest among them in the church. Praise the Lord. While I was young, I made myself available for service. And I was always occupying one position or the other. When it comes to building, it's always on my neck, full. But apart from that, many social activities, they dump on me because I was a willing horse. I was lucky to have met few people who have been wonderful to me in my life. Number one, apart from my father and my mother, my sister, she's late now, Mrs. Ibijoke Abedu. she took me over immediately my mother died. Before my mother died, before my mother died, we were like mouse and cats, because we are all living on my mom, and she's jealous of me. I'm jealous of her, because as a lady, my mother took some woman compassion on her, and I feel I am the one doing all the labor. I'm not getting half what she's getting. That's the mentality of a child. But that was not the important thing. The important thing, she was bossy. She would push me around. And as a young man, we were very stubborn. I didn't like it. But you know what? As soon as my mother died, everything changed. If she had 2 kobo, she would give me 1 kobo. If she had only 2, in fact, she would prefer to give me the 2 kobo. And I lost my mother when I was only 13. And she won't gone. She was in England. She actually attracted me to England when I fell out from Zaria. When I'm left alone, somebody is always coming to, God is always sending somebody to come and lift me from my fall. It's easy to fall. Now, I don't want to talk about spiritual aspect of life. Sometimes I think, in this society, they say they see your star, therefore they follow you. Okay? But when we were younger, mothers take that as responsibility to protect physically and spiritually their children. But I have no mother. See my point? Serious. No mother. So who's going to protect us? Except those who are going to fight. So thank God, but I have God. I have God. And He is sufficient. He is sufficient. And it's been wonderful in my life. I didn't know I would last 70 years. In fact, I thought from 60 years, I should thank God. But after 60, I went to 70. I was still feeling strong. But something happened. Just before I got to 70, I became very sick. And I thought I was going again. Miraculously. I was living upstairs. I moved my bedroom to downstairs because I couldn't climb again. I furnished everything, I prepared myself. But alas, at 90 I'm still climbing. I want to thank God. I want to say every day that I see myself and I look around me at 90, physically, I want to thank God. God has been very, very kind to me. I didn't have what it takes. My life has been ups and downs. Ups and downs. There's ups and downs. Even now, I'm still going some through ups and downs. But because of what I have learned in the past, I just thank God. I know I grew up among many friends, close one and distant one. When you move out, you make friends at work, you make friends in the college, you make friends at home. I want to thank God that I'm still alive. It is the blessing of God that gives you all this. Money cannot buy it. Medicine cannot buy it. No, money cannot buy it. Medicine cannot buy it. So I want to thank God. So that's one great one and I know God has a reason, purpose for sparing my life to this time. And I always pray that you have been so kind to me, Lord. I pray you take me to the end.